Elizabeth Lolli, Interim Superintendent for the Lakota Local Schools. Welcome to a Look Around Lakota. Each month, we take a deeper dive into a different area of how we educate and support our students. This month, we are discussing mental health support in school. With me today from the Lakota Local Schools is Wyetta Hayden, Interim Executive Director of Pupil Personnel Services, and Megan Cameron. She is our Student Wellness Coordinator. I'm also joined by Ellen Diersing, Lead Social Worker and Clinical Counselor at Cincinnati Children's. Educating students goes beyond teaching lessons around reading, writing, and arithmetic. We understand that strong mental health plays a key role in students' academic success, and partnering with families is crucial. Thank you for joining me today to discuss this important topic. To start off with, I'd like to talk a little bit about why mental health has become such a prevalent topic of conversation over the last few years. And Ellen, I'd like to ask you to address that. And if you have any statistics that we might hear about, that would be really helpful too.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm clearly very passionate about mental health, and I think this is a very important topic. So I'm very happy that you're doing this today. As you said, mental health has become a very prevalent topic of conversation recently, and I think that's because we're seeing a spike in people experiencing mental health symptoms as well as mental health diagnoses. And I think part of that is because everybody's becoming more comfortable talking about mental health. 15 years ago, we might not be sitting here talking about how we're feeling and what mental health is. And I think as we talk about it more, the stigma related to mental health starts to decrease. So now it's okay to go to your friend and say, hey, I'm not doing okay. And when we're not feeling okay, it's okay for us to reach out to a professional for help, just like if you needed to go to the doctor because you were sick. When we're seeing these numbers spike, we're now also seeing, unfortunately, a shortage in mental health providers. So when we have this spike of people having mental health symptoms, and then we're not having enough people to help them, the conversation even goes farther. Like you said, in terms of statistics, in Ohio specifically, we're seeing a dramatic rise. So in 2020, nearly 1 in 8 children were diagnosed with anxiety, depression, or both. 1 in 3 students report challenges with anxiety. And then between 2007 and 2019, we also saw a dramatic increase in deaths by suicide, an increase by almost 57% for youth aged 10 to 24, which is a terrible statistic. So across the U.S., to give you a little bit better perspective, that's 1 individual die by suicide every 11 minutes. So like I said, we're seeing this shortage because we are having such this increase. So in Ohio alone, we have roughly 52% of youths aged 12 to 17 that did not receive care for their mental health diagnosis. So that's why I think this is really amazing that you guys are having this conversation today and that you offer mental health supports in your schools.
What are some reasons that we should be offering those mental health supports as related to curriculum instruction, the work that happens in a school, Megan? Why should we be offering those things?
We need to offer mental health supports because we know kids learn best when they feel safe in their environment, when their brains are online ready to learn. And so if their brains are not there and not ready to receive the information, they're not going to get anything from us. And to really help build those safety and relationships with teachers and staff and really create a welcoming environment for them to receive their education.
I think it's really important to piggyback off of what Megan was saying is it's just easy. It's very easy. A parent doesn't have to come to school to pick up their child, take them to an appointment. So it allows easy access to care. They're missing less school because they're not having to be pulled out for a half of a day or an entire day to go to an appointment, 30 minutes away. Oftentimes it's counselors or teachers as well that are identifying the need first. And so a student might find comfort in knowing, well, hey, this counselor actually knows the therapist that I'm about to see. I also think it's wonderful because the therapist in school can be available for crisis support. So if at a point in time a student is really struggling, You know, if they are seeing the therapist in school, they can go and speak to that person right there so that they can get regulated to be able to go back into class instead of having to miss the whole entire day because they can't regulate, or instead of having to go to a hospital and be evaluated by somebody. They can meet with somebody right there in that moment that they trust.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
The collaboration, I think, too, between school and agency makes it a lot easier because we can take what the therapists are doing and build it into their academic day. So they have strategies to help them regulate throughout the time that they need that. So that collaboration piece is key, too.
I know that in my previous school district, we had a very, very large influx of students who needed mental health supports after they returned from the isolation of being remote during the COVID period and when Ohio had shut down. So it's so important for us to actually recognize that and recognize that need. What are some of the challenges students might have, Wyetta, at school if mental health supports are not in place?
Well, it's going to make it difficult for students to focus on instruction. It's hard for them to concentrate. Therefore, they're not getting what the teachers are trying to give to them. That leads to frustration because they can't do the work or they don't understand, they're embarrassed. And that can lead to negative behavior because they're unsure of why they aren't able to do what everyone else appears to be doing. It also makes it difficult for students to make connections with other students. There's a lack of a sense of community. They may not feel as valued as others or as important because they have these internal struggles. And it's difficult for children because they don't understand. So those challenges really impact what our students are able to do when it comes to learning, which unfortunately can lead to a negative aspect because the student may begin to act out and may begin to exhibit behaviors that are totally disruptive to everyone's learning process. So it's a real struggle when children have those struggles.
Thank you. Megan, what are the actual supports that we have in place in Lakota for our students?
For all students, they have access to their school counselors. So they push into their classrooms, they can go and do check-ins. Some of them lead groups, lunch bunches, a variety of different things where they can touch base with their school counselor. We do partner with Companions on a Journey that helps students who have lost a loved one. They meet once a month and they can help meet other students and kind of normalize what their new normal will look like. We have Envision partnerships through Butler County that come in and also really work on social skills, very strategic based skill sets for students. And then we have our Tier 3, which is really our partnerships with Cincinnati Children and Catalyst Counseling to help students as well.
Excellent. How would a parent go about requesting some extra supports or some extra help if they felt that their child needed those types of support systems?
I would suggest calling your school counselor or emailing the school counselor. That's the best way to get through. And they can kind of talk to you about different options that are available not only at school, but if you are looking for community-based options as well, our school counselors are really knowledgeable about what can help students right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Lakota began partnering with MindPeace several years ago to place licensed therapists in each of our schools. What are some examples of the impact this has had in Lakota?
It's grown immensely. So we started partnering back in 2017-2018 school year, and we actually started at Lakota West, and we had 17 total students start with us that year. That was it. This year, actually last school year of 22-23, we had 1,009 students actively in therapy with our school-based partnerships. And we actually had about 1,135 referrals, and there are some barriers, obviously, where sometimes people find outside care. That's an immense amount of referrals and immense amount of growth in such a short time. And we started with one school and now we're in every school.
And are we seeing positive impact with that support that we've put in place with our students?
Certainly. I think the impact is when we can see students actively growing and then they no longer need that therapeutic service, but it's always there as an option to come back to. I think we've seen it with kids coming back into class. They can regulate, as Ellen said, they're regulating, they're moving back into class. And again, they're not losing pieces of their education because they're missing to go outside into the community.
Great. Whenever I think about being in a classroom, there are so many things that we're responsible for as teachers. So many things that the state requires us to do, so many things that we just do naturally because we're coaches and we're teaching and we're trying to help the students as best we can, how do we make sure that our teachers are actually prepared for students who may be suffering from some sort of mental health issue or concern? How do we do that in Lakota?
We train all of our staff with QPR, which is Question, Persuade, Refer, which is a suicide prevention program. And it's really about noticing changes and then referring them to help. And that's typically through their school counselor, through Children's, through Catalyst. And then what we also have been working on is really working on a trauma-informed care system here in the district. So really noticing what could trauma look like. And it used to be big T, little t, but all trauma is trauma. So it could be the loss of a loved one. It could be that they had a car accident when they were younger and it's still impacting them. It could be whatever it is to them. It's impacting their learning and their brain development. So those are the things that we have been trained with staff to notice.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Whenever I think about parents and the work that they have to do with their children at home, sometimes they're without the types of supports that we offer, and many times they do have those supports. But how can we make sure, and this question really is for all three of you, how can we help parents know how to support their children at home? What are some ideas or suggestions that we might give them?
I think one thing parents need to make sure they listen. We all want our kids to be normal, happy, vibrant. And I think parents need to listen, but to know what to listen for. Then when they hear something out of the ordinary, if they don't know what to do, there are resources at the school. And I feel like at this district, we have done a really good job of making parents know what is available through the district and how we can support them. There have been, and there still are some communities that have a stigma associated with mental health. We have children who live with parents who have mental health, unaddressed mental health issues, and they begin to think that is the norm. So I think the more we can make our children aware of their self-value, their self-esteem, and to let them know it's okay if you're having these kinds of feelings. That also is the support for parents who might not be sure what to do, but then if the child says, but mom, this is how I feel, then together they can seek that help. But if parents can listen and then get actively involved in finding the right path for their students.
Okay, thank you. Other ideas?
Just to piggyback off of what Wyetta was saying is be present, right? I mean, we all live very busy lives, but taking time out of your day to spend time with your children, setting rules, setting boundaries, and I know in this day and age that can be very difficult for all of us, right? But limiting screen time, which may be a fight at first, but in the long run will be very helpful. Knowing who your child is friends with and paying attention to those small details. So is your child, spending more time in their room? Is your child skipping class or skipping school? Are their grades dropping, right? I mean, these things happen slowly over time. So if you are aware of your child and paying attention to those details, you'll be able to pick them up much quicker. And then like Wyetta said, I mean, reach out for help. The school is here. You guys are here because you care about kids. I know parents know how to reach out to you guys. So reach out and then get connected to care.
And I would say too, we typically try to offer at least 2 events every year regarding mental health or maybe some parent interest. I know we did last year one on screens and how to help those boundaries, set the boundaries, really be firm with them. And then this year we've done one already with Companions on a Journey about how to help and support your child who's grieving. So just be in the know about those events and attend them and just gain some information and some knowledge, or have more questions and say, I think I need this, I wonder what this could look like, and we can always work on that as well.
Well, I think that our most important group of people here are our students. And I think that we really need to do everything that we possibly can to make their time in the Lakota Local Schools successful, happy, engaged. And just one more time before we close, Megan, could you tell us and tell our audience how they can actually reach out for support if they feel that their child is in need of it?
Of course. I think the best way to reach out is through their school counselor. That would be the first step. If you feel like the school counselor, you can't connect with them, always feel free to reach out to an admin. We do have it linked onto our website about here are all our school-based therapy partners, here's who to connect to. We have the therapists listed for the buildings as well. And I would say if you're not comfortable quite yet with school-based therapy, feel free to reach out to MindPeace. They are also very helpful about connecting people within the community to find an open community partner, because that's, you know, a struggle right now, and they'll match you up with insurance or needs, things like that.
Excellent. We have such great community partners here working with us on this, including the wonderful work that Cincinnati Children's does. So I really, I know that we can provide the types of support, or at least the direction for support that our parents might be in need of to help their children.
Families can also call PERC with Cincinnati Children's if they are in crisis to get help. They can also help find providers outside of Cincinnati Children's even. And then of course, you know, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline 988 is a great resource as well.
And is it PERT, P-E-R-T?
It's P-I-R-C.
P-I-R-C.
Yes.
Is what they could contact for Cincinnati Children's.
Yep, it's the Psychiatric Intake Response Center through Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that as well. That may be a resource that many people don't know about. That's right here in our backyard.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Ellen, Wyetta, and Megan for being with us today. Lots and lots of information for our audience. For more information, please visit the Mental Health and Wellness page on our website, lakotaonline.com, or contact your building administrator. Thank you for joining us today. Please remember that all of us here at Lakota Local Schools and Cincinnati Children's are here to support you and your family. Thank you for your support of the Lakota Local Schools.